The Sword in the Stone from Le Mort d'Arthur, Sir Thomas Malory. This is the beginning of the legend. During the years that followed the death of King Uther, while Arthur was still a child, the ambitious barons fought one another for the throne, and the whole of Britain stood in jeopardy. Finally, the day came when the Archbishop of Canterbury, on the advice of Merlin, summoned the nobility to London for Christmas morning. In his message, the Archbishop promised that the true succession of the British throne would be miraculously revealed. Many of the nobles purified themselves during their journey in the hope that it would be to them that the succession would fall. The Archbishop held his service in the city's greatest church, St. Paul's, and when matins were done, the congregation filled out to the yard. They were confronted by a marble block into which had been thrust a beautiful sword. The block was 4 feet square, and the sword passed through a steel anvil which had been struck in the stone and which projected a foot from it. The anvil had been inscribed with letters of gold. Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone and anvil is right way king born of all Britain. The congregation was awed by this miraculous sight, but the archbishop forbade anyone to touch the sword before Mass had been heard. After Mass, many of the nobles tried to pull the sword out of the stone, but none was able to. So a watch of 10 knights was set over the sword, and the tournament proclaimed for New Year's Day to provide men of noble blood with the opportunity of proving their right to the succession. Sir Ector, who had been living on an estate near London, rode to the tournament where with Arthur and his own son, Sir Kay, who had been recently knighted. When they arrived at the tournament, Sir Kay found to his annoyance that his sword was missing from its sheath. So he begged Arthur to ride back and fetch it from their lodging. Arthur found the door of the lodging locked and bolted, and the landlord and his wife having left for the tournament. In order not to disappoint his brother, he rode on to St. Paul's, determined to get for him the sword which was lodged in the stone. The yard was empty, the guard also having slipped off to see the tournament. So Arthur strode up the sword and, without troubling to read the inscription, tugged it free. He then rode back to Sir Kay and presented him with it. Sir Kay recognized the sword. Taking it to Sir Ector, said, "Father, the succession falls to me, for I have here the sword that was lodged in the stone." But Sir Ector insisted that they should all ride to the churchyard, and once there, bound Sir Kay by oath to tell how he had come by the sword. Sir Kay then admitted that Arthur had given it to him. Sir Ector turned to Sir Arthur and said, "Was the sword not guarded?" "It was not," Arthur replied. "Would you please thrust it into the stone again?" said Sir Ector. Arthur did so, and first Sir Ector, then Sir Kay tried to remove it, but both were unable to. Then Arthur, for a second time, pulled it out. Sir Ector and Sir Kay both knelt before him. "Why," said Arthur, "do you both kneel before me?" "My lord," Sir Ector replied, "there is only one man living who can draw the sword from the stone, and he is the true-born king of Britain." Sir Ector then told Arthur the story of his birth and upbringing. "My dear father," said Arthur, "for so I shall always think of you, if, as you say, I am to be king, please know that any request you have to make is already granted." Sir Ector asked that Sir Kay should be made a royal seneschal, and Arthur declared that while they both lived it should be so. Then the three of them visited the archbishop and told him what had taken place. All those dukes and barons with ambitions to rule were present at the tournament on New Year's Day. But when all of them had finished and Arthur alone had succeeded in drawing the sword from the stone, they protested against one so young and of ignoble blood succeeding the throne. The secret of Arthur's birth was known to only a few of the nobles surviving from the days of King Uther. The archbishop urged them to make Arthur's cause their own, but their support proved ineffective. The tournament was repeated at Candlemas and at Easter with the same outcome as before. Finally, at Pentecost, when once more Arthur alone had been able to remove the sword, the commoners arose with a tumultuous cry and demanded that Arthur should at once be made king. The nobles, knowing in their hearts that the commoners were right, all knelt before Arthur and begged forgiveness for having delayed his succession for so long. Arthur forgave them, and then, offering his sword at the high altar, was dubbed first knight of the realm. The coronation took place a few days later, when Arthur swore to rule justly, and the nobles swore to him their allegiance.